Man's survival is dependent on three basic needs: shelter, clothing, and most importantly, food. Food is needed for sustenance of life as it promotes growth and provides man with the energy needed for day-to-day activity, owing to its importance and to make food not only available but also affordable for Nigeria's teeming population. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu declared the state of emergency on food security. The declaration of the state of emergency on food security is the focus on this edition of Frontiers. My name is Obiageli Ugoke, and our guest is Mohammed Ali Baba, member, Commodity Association of Nigeria, and former director with the Central Bank of Nigeria. Glad to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
The program continues in just a moment. Please stay with us. Once again, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, now, in addressing the issue of food security, one of the key points of the intervention plan is immediate release of fertilizers and grains to farmers and households. What's your take on that?
Well, truly that's a very fantastic idea, and I think it's very most responsible of the present administration. Because for those of us that are farmers, one of the major challenges of cost of foodstuff, which has been the complaint largely, is the cost of production. And a major item on the economic, items you require to grow food is the fertilizer, because our system has been, infused with this inorganic fertilizer that virtually every farmer is dependent on it, and the cost has skyrocketed beyond the reach of most of these our farmers. And so the actual reason why the cost is that high is, first, they can't afford these inputs, and without these inputs, productivity is low. And generally, as you grow or as you produce, that's how you sell. You need to recover cost and make a margin. But additionally too, because the cost is so high, and lately the Anchor Borrower program that was used to support them is no longer available, few of them can even afford it.
Now, also captured in the plan is a synergy between Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Water Resources for irrigation on all year round farming through the activation of 500,000 hectares of land and the river basins. What do you make of this development?
I think I personally, and it's an idea that also the Federation of Agricultural Commodities Association is considering, is actually a remerger of the two ministries. Because if you must optimize, because we've always seen a situation where those who take charge of the water are only interested in aggregating the water, and then they hardly are they concerned about who uses the water. Personally, like I said, and even the association, we are thinking that these two ministries should be merged if we must optimize. Just came back from Swashi Irrigation Scheme.
Yes.
Swashi Irrigation Scheme is at the tip of Niger State. Niger is the largest state in this country, 10% landmass, and is largely agri-friendly, agrarian. So at that tip, you have this challenge with water, but you see this irrigation scheme unattended to because there are no farmers are available around that area. Most farmers are in their own fields. So this irrigation scheme is now available. Ordinarily, if they were merged, the Ministry of Agriculture will be aware. So they have a way of mobilizing farmers around that place. Whatever inputs they are given, support they are given, the farmers will utilize that. Because if we must farm all year round, we must realize that while irrigation farming is actually optimal, more productive, but it comes with a huge cost. And these irrigation schemes are, for now, very limited. But even the limited ones are not, like this Swashi, is not optimally utilized. So we feel they not just synergy. I think it would be best if they could be merged, so that as the water, those in charge of the water will also be interested in the utilization of that water. For now, the relationship is suboptimal, truly.
The Swashi irrigation plan, is it for all farmers to tap into the potentials or just members of the association?
No, it's actually a federal government irrigation scheme, but it has been concession to a private enterprise. There are some Indians that have obtained the concession and they developed it, and then they also have a rice mill. One of the biggest rice mills is there in Niger State called Kiara Rice Mill. So they actually are supposed to use that to produce, supplement the ones they get from the market. But like I said, because most of these mills, that's one of the challenges we have, and that's why part of this food security initiative is to see how farmers can work hand in hand with the millers. Ordinarily, you expect that millers should be doing backward integration, but a lot of them are not structured to personally undertake that. So they need to this relationship, between farmers and this millers, so that they will also be interested in taking over and optimizing this irrigation scheme. For now, those guys are trying, because like we said, when we went there, we were highly impressed with the kind of equipment and even the inputs they have. But because the place is at the at the tip of the country, it's not so easily accessible. So you have places where that are not attended to. Like I said, we're actually entering into an arrangement with them where we can bring farmers from elsewhere while they provide inputs, and then they utilize that. Because water is very critical. For dry season, one of the hugest costs is pumping machine, diesel. If you don't have an irrigation scheme like this gravity propelled irrigation scheme that we have, farmers have to buy fuel to pump water. And it's huge. Not many farmers can afford. And that is one of the challenges of this all year round farming. Yes. So bringing more land into cultivation is a very good one. But we also need irrigation schemes. And I want to seize this opportunity to actually also draw the attention of states and local governments. They too can participate, because these irrigation schemes are largely federal government owned. It's as if everywhere, the states and the local governments have hands off. So, but if we must achieve this, there has to be that synergy between all these three tiers of governments. After all, the citizens are closer to the states. They are their own states. The federal government doesn't have citizens. So usually the federal government is supposed to provide policy direction and support. But the states and local government largely, they own the land, they own the farmers. So they should be investing heavily into this supporting infrastructure, especially irrigation. Because with climate change now, you see, we are not at the peak of the rainy season, but some of the farmlands have already been flooded. We have farmers in our localities that lost their harvest. Those that started from dry season, they were just about to harvest and the rest have swept it away. So increasingly, we have to dedicate efforts towards dry season agriculture, but irrigation is critical, because it's too costly for the average farmer to pump water, dig tube well or borehole and pump water.
Now, over the years, governments have offered some funding to agriculture, like provision of loans, and President Tinubu is also looking at the same direction and will involve the central bank in funding agricultural value chain. Now, what should be done differently to achieve the desired results?
Good. That's a very, very critical challenge, Like I said, I was from the CBI. I was part of those initiatives of the Ankobra program. I think personally, and increasingly, we're coming to terms with the fact that the challenges of the average farmer are beyond inputs. The average farmer is resource challenged. So he needs to meet his basic, household expenses. So most of the time, when this input gets to him and he's hard pressed, the tendency is for him to dispense some with the hope that, he could replace when he needs them. So one of the ways I personally feel, and like I said, even the association are considering, is cluster farming. Under the cluster arrangement, the farmers will contribute their land, and if possible, under this funding, usually there's a requirement for equity. The farmer will bring contribution, 20 to 25%, and then the funders will provide the balance. So our own proposition is that rather than hand over inputs or the loan to individual farmers, that their land area, the cluster, should be collectively, farmed, from land preparation up to harvest. There would be shareholders, there will be participants, but giving individuals inputs, you can't safeguard the fact that all of it will come back to that line. You know, one of the, what do you call it, mitigating factors under the old dispensation is that rather than to give them cash, you give them inputs. But you see, some of these inputs end up in the markets. But by the time they are participants, like an enterprise, a collective enterprise, you have their management team along with them. When it is time for land preparation, they will invite, and of course, you need mechanization. You need tractors, you small hand tillers. So if they are available, rather than each individual going to look for these services as a cluster, because most of these commodities associations have an arrangement from cluster to ward to local government, then state, and then federal, where we coordinate activities. So rather than giving inputs to individuals, this cluster, if it's 50 or 100 or 200 farms, should be done collectively. But of course, the government needs to support them with, what do you call it, mechanization equipment. They should have access to tractors, whether handheld or the main tractors, and usually even that business will boom by the time part of the challenge of mechanization is that maybe only one in a farm of maybe 50 or 100 in a village or a cluster, only a few, maybe 5 to 10 can afford to pay for mechanization. So you will do 5, 10 here and move to maybe the next 10 kilometers or 20. So it makes even that business less viable. But if you have an expert, he will come into this cluster, you have 50, so he will take some days, and then even that business is another opportunity to actually boom that part of the business. So I think one of the, like you asked rightly, one of the ways we must do differently is that we should try to focus on cluster arrangement, so that if there are 100 hectares in a particular place, the loan for these 100 farmers should be consolidated, and services and inputs also equally consolidated, and the activities done as a collective. Even at the moment, traditionally, you have this group thing. They will go and farm this man's farm today as a collective, they will go to the next one. But with mechanization, the entire thing can be done even in fewer days. But like I said, it will also create another opportunity for the mechanization service, the tractor drivers, their boys, and others, including even, spreading of insecticides and things like that. Whatever operation, once it's done collectively, there is some improvement in the likelihood that, some of these inputs will not find their way into the market. So, and the second challenge usually is in side selling. When a farmer maybe harvests, instead of bringing it to repay loan, he says he has present needs, so he takes it. So if even the harvest will be done collectively, the managers will take out the loan even before the farmer gets access to the residual balance. So I think primarily that is one of the things we are adverting our minds, how we can have collective operation. But we also, like I said, need support with mechanization, because that is what will enhance productivity. Part of our challenge actually is that we are still using this ancient hoe and cutlass system. It can't feed us.
All right, we'll take a break and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
This is Frontiers, and we're taking a look at food security and the President's declaration of a state of emergency on it. The conversation continues shortly. Don't go away. Many thanks for staying tuned. All right, Mr. Alibawan, back to you. Taking a look at post-harvest activities, how can it be improved? Transportation and storage facility help check agricultural losses.
Good. A lot of these questions are fantastic. Prior to now, there has been efforts.
Because I want to believe that transportation is one of the basic ingredients in increment and the prices of food.
Yeah, you see, the starting point is aggregation. Aggregation near the farmland, because when we are talking of cluster now, if you harvest as a cluster, there's a proposition, there's a bill before the National Assembly. It's been there for more than 12 years now, or 13. It's called the Warehousing Receipt Bill. What that Warehousing Receipt Bill is expected to do is that when farmers harvest, they don't need to rush to the market, because that's also another challenge for sustainable income for the farmer, because a lot of them are pressed, they don't have storage facilities, and then of course they will all rush at once to the market, and that depresses the price, so they get less than optimal returns on their investment. So what that warehousing receipt was expected to do was to recognize a receipt when a farmer harvests. Rather than go and dump everything in the market, there will be certified receipts, registered warehouses. That's another form of business for investors. They will establish warehouses close to these farmers. Of course, there will be specialized warehouses. The farmers will bring their harvest there. Those that don't really need money now, but they don't have storage, they will bring it there, and this receipt that they will be given, they can use it as a collateral to take loan from microfinance banks. So, and then of course this receipt will be taken as a collateral, and then the bank can advance in loan when the market is good for him. So
no other payment is attached apart from the receipt?
No, I'm saying when he stores it, he can use this receipt to go and take loan, just like a collateral, like your CFO of your house. That is what it will serve, because this warehouse that issued him receipt will have been recognized and certified, for that activity. But that law is yet to be passed. So it is the law that will enable these banks to take these receipts. Now, if he is not compelled, if these warehouses are nearby, the tendency to everybody to rush to the market will be minimized. So also the impact on transportation. So, and of course, part of what we are expecting is that the rural roads will have to be provided, and then of course people are talking about provision of buses and things like that. That's for the urban areas. For the rural farmer, what he needs basically are access roads to his farm, and of course that will encourage people to come and set up these warehouses. That will also be another form of business, but where, like I said, he will not be forced every time he harvests to head to the market and go and get pittance. He will be able to sell as at when he really needs it. And over time, we expect that the commodity exchanges will be developed so that these warehouses will be trading on his behalf, to those that need it in the exchanges. That is what is done elsewhere. You don't always have to physically carry your items to the market. That is where the challenge of transportation. Once they are there, because they are huge, the economic of scale now enables these warehouse guys to trade on the exchange. So whoever needs it, the millers and processors that need it, will arrange to go and evacuate their things once they have bought and sold them after negotiation. But like I said, this farmer is not under compulsion to rush everything to the market and get pittance, and then after a few months he's back into penury. So that's also what is required. Developing that, we talk of commodity exchange. The government wants to set up commodity boards. Although those were the roles they were playing before the advent of SAP. Those commodity boards were stabilizing prices. This, up and down that even the prices make, that also will be tempered with, because there will be assurance that over time these supplies will come to the market, because the information will be available in the market that there are warehouses here and there are stocks here, the volumes will be known. So people will not be pressed to go and buy and stock too, because it is this invasion, to buy and stock that raises these prices. So price stability will also be ensured once we are able to develop the commodities market through these warehouses, through commodities boards, through commodity exchanges. These are all infrastructure that the government needs to focus upon if we want sustainable food security.
Talking about commodities, the plan to make Nigeria food secured also proposes the creation of a national commodity board for price assessment and maintenance of strategic food reserve. What's your view on that? That's
one of the things I mentioned. It's very important because, like I said, the role of the commodity boards usually is they will be buyers of last resort. First and foremost, government will set up what is called guaranteed minimum price so that the farmer never loses.
But what about the price assessments?
No, it's all part of it. That's what I'm saying now. The essence of those commodity exchanges is, for instance, now they will say anything you use, especially in the era of oversupply, the government will put a price above the market so that the farmer doesn't lose. So when any time the farmer cannot sell, these commodity boards will offtake at that guaranteed minimum price. And when it's time, like the government is now directing the release of grains, those are the kind of grains that will be released at subsidized rate for the farmers, and that is what will temper these skyrocketing prices we are talking about. So it's a very, like I say, very welcome development. You know, we lost it under SAP, but we actually need these commodity boards because of this price thing they are talking about. They will be able to stabilize prices. When the prices are too high, those commodity boards, which are usually government owned, they will release these grants, and that will temper the prices, so the citizens will be able to afford food.
Now the president is hoping that if the intervention plan is implemented, it will translate to improved trade, increased revenue from food and agricultural experts. As a commodity market analyst, what do you make of this?
Like I say, all are dovetailing into the same direction, because by the time all this infrastructure, all these structures are put in place, you have a coherent commodity system whereby, you know, people will find, you know, solace and will find income, will find attraction, so that more and more people, once they have a coherent system that they can, is predictable and is well known, people can invest into it. And of course, as people invest, as incomes are made, government also gets revenue. People get employed, because any investor that comes, even starting from farming, I've just told you about Swashina. We're looking for investors that will be interested maybe in leasing those places, providing inputs. Of course, they will make income, and government can tax some of those incomes. Processing will increase, because once we have, just like we have with the rice mills, when we started, before the Ankobo started, we have only about 7 integrated rice mills. Now we have over 70. As largely because we are producing rice locally, so people have the incentive to set up rice mills. So it's the same with every other commodity. Once there is enough production, there will be the incentive for investors to put their money there. And then along with it, people will earn income, government will equally earn income, employment will be generated, and then of course there will be stability, because even the insecurity will keep happening upon. A lot of it is young people that are unemployed, and they say the devil finds work for the idle hands, you know, and that is what is happening. So once, like I said, these initiatives are fully implemented, because part of the challenge was to get the right set of people to implement them. And of course, the president is well known for to have knack for, you know, experts, you know, picking brains and things like that. So once we have square pegs in square holes, the right set of persons to manage these interventions, then of course the goals will be achieved.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ali Baba. We must appreciate you for your responses and for the insights given. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We have been taking a look at the presidential intervention plan aimed at addressing food security, which was declared as a state of emergency by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And our guest has been Muhammad Ali Baba. He is a member of Federation of Agricultural Commodities Associations of Nigeria and former director with the Central Bank of Nigeria. My name is Sobiageli Ugoke. Thanks for staying tuned.